Hey, everybody. Welcome to the 91st episode of the Run, Try, Bike Fireside Chats. Today, we're going to be joined by a very special guest, longtime friend of the platform, Marci Braithwaite. She is known as the Fat Athlete. She is out here building a community and is an advocate for those in larger bodies. She just recently posted or shared a story on our website about body neutrality. And she has also been my inspiration for making sure I get my workout snacks in after I saw her doing this on Instagram about a year ago. So let's get started with episode 91 of our Fireside Chats and bring on Marci.
Hello.
How are you?
I am fabulous. Thank you so much for having me. It is lovely to be here with
Well,
you both.
first of all, the thanks goes to you for everything that you have done to help us understand athletes in larger bodies and what you go through and the things that you are overcoming and the obstacles you're dealing with. But you've also helped me out tremendously. I'm telling you, right before I jumped on our call, I did a small workout snack, 30 push-ups to get myself ready. So thank you.
Thank you for jumping into my my philosophy about workout snacks, movement snacks. It's I think it's really helping a lot of people to kind of demystify fitness and make it an easier way for them to find a way in.
Absolutely. Karen from Caleb's crew is said hello to you via Instagram. And for those of you who are joining us, wherever platform you are on, please feel free to ask questions, post comments. We'll make sure we get them in front of Marci. And so I'm going to start with my very first question to you, Marci. Do you view yourself as an influencer, or do you think that you're just somebody out here doing this stuff? And if people latch on, people latch on?
Can I say both? I
Absolutely.
I guess so. I'm a reluctant influencer, I guess. In that I would love to influence people to recognize that all bodies belong in fitness. I would also like people to just kind of listen to what I have to say and come along with me. So the influencer thing. I'm a almost 45-year-old woman. I'm not sure influencer is the best title to wear over my head, but if I can influence anybody to realize that there is a place in fitness for people in larger bodies, and to be able to, like I said, find a way in a way that's less intimidating, then I'm glad I've influenced them to do that.
How did you get started with this idea of I'm gonna post, and if people follow me, that's great. Like what was the for lack of a better phrase, the straw that broke the camel's back when you're like, I'm doing this?
So, okay. It was, I will not ever have any of these conversations without mentioning Myrna Valerio's name. I joined her group, Fat Girl Running, years ago. I think it must have been 2018. And I'm chronically online. So I was posting all of my runs. And back then, 2018 was the year before I started training for actually, that was the year I started training for my marathon. And I had run a couple of halves that year. That year was the year I qualified for the Crown of the Sound through Tacoma City Marathon Association. Got my special medal for doing 4 half marathons that year. And I was posting all of that on Fat Girl Running. And Myrna messaged me one day after I had talked to her about some guy who had shown up in my DMs and was being gross. And I was like, can we get this guy kicked out of the group? And she's like, oh, absolutely. And then she asked, aren't you a running coach? And I said, no, I run a lot and I'm online a lot, but I'm not a running coach. I'm the leader of my running group here, but I'm not a coach. And she goes, you should get certified through RRCA or USATF and become a coach. Your vibe is awesome. And I was like, first of all, she's my idol. And when your idol tells you should do something, you freaking go and do it. So that's when I signed up to get certified. First, I got certified through USATF, went through their level 1 training program, learned a lot about track and field, which I had never done before, and didn't know anything about it, and found out that if I had seen somebody who looked like me when I was in high school, I would have seen people who were doing athletics, who were doing track and field. Go ahead.
So the question I was going to ask you is about that exactly right there. Like
Yep.
the exposure to somebody in a larger body when you were younger would have gotten you started in running, you believe, earlier?
I don't know necessarily about running. I ran for, the PE classes and stuff that I had to run for, but I'm not sure that running would have been my choice. If I had seen more shot putters, which is what I actually looked like when I was that age, if I had seen more stocky built people who were good at throwing shit, then it probably would have inspired me to actually be involved in athletics. To be fair, I was a people pleaser. I was, I was terrified of failure, and I was never a team sports type of person. I did ballet, which was very individualized for me at the time. And I did, YMCA sports growing up, but I never did team sports more than once or twice when I was really young. And it was, I think, just the fact that I didn't see anybody else who looked like me. I always felt like, everybody was telling me that I was fat, that I was not, attractive, that I was whatever. I did not feel good about myself. I didn't see myself represented in sports. I didn't have a very sporty family. And so entering into sports later on in life seemed like the only way that it was going to happen. And that kind of plays into how I got here, which is when Myrna told me, you should be a coach. And I was like, well, if I'm going to be a coach, well, I might as well get out on social media and start telling people that we can be coaches. People in larger bodies can help people in larger bodies become athletes. This is something that we can all do together. And that's kind of where I'm at now.
Are you starting to go ahead? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Om.
Well, you made a very interesting point about the experiences that you've been through. And I went through very similar experiences when I was growing up. And one of the things that I've always asked myself is, did those experiences give me the capability to have that empathy, to be that coach? And I'm wondering, have you reflected on that? And do you feel that way about where you stand as a coach, as, I don't want to say influencer, but like has your past experience, do you feel like giving you a better stance on what you do and like reaching out to other people you want to be in the sport and represented in the sport?
Absolutely, yes. It is absolutely just the fact that I know, so many of the stories that my friends and followers tell me about experiencing movement in their larger bodies are exactly the same experiences that I had. And so it's really not even empathy. It's just, we've all been through this shit together. And so let's support each other, lift each other up. And then, yes, there does also have to be empathy for the people who maybe are smaller than me, who have a little more privilege in terms of access to things like race shirts and clothing and gear. But I also understand that if they are still in larger bodies than a typical runner, they also have that difficulty in accessing fitness as well. So the empathy comes when it's not necessarily someone who is identifying with my experience. It's when people who don't look like me are also, I can understand their experiences as well through that empathy.
So this is a great segue to the question that I didn't plan on asking, but I'm going to ask. So Myrna is in a Lecky ad that's in our Best of 2023 issue, and we were thrilled to have that in there. And so we're seeing things from our lens and our point of view, and we who are not in larger bodies might perceive that things are changing, right? Because we have an ad that has a woman in a larger body in it. But as a woman in a larger body, are you actually seeing change? Do you feel like media in and of itself in the endurance sports space, running specifically, is changing? And are race directors also keeping up with that trend as well? Or are race directors leading the trend, I should say?
Okay, so this is a complicated question. Excuse me. And I don't think there's an easy answer. For a while there, people in larger bodies were a trend. And this was up until very recently. The body quality debacle that happened with Old Navy and their larger sizes available in stores. There's a lot that has been catering to people in larger bodies over the last couple of years. I've noticed there was a trend away from that all of a sudden. And I'm wondering whether or not the companies that did, promote their larger sizes, promote size inclusivity, the ones that just adopted it because it was a trend, I'm wondering if those are going to continue doing that, or if, things that were useful in terms of inclusion, not just inclusion of people in larger bodies or slower runners, but also inclusion of representation of people of other colors and nationalities. I'm wondering if inclusion is going to be as trendy as it has been in the last few years. I have noticed that more races are offering longer cutoff times. That's fabulous. I've noticed that a lot of marathons have moved their cutoff times to 6.5 hours or even 7 hours. Some, world majors, New York doesn't have a cutoff anymore, or maybe it was Chicago. I forget which one it was, but excuse me. But I really think that the little signs that I've seen here and there indicating that that inclusivity was a trend is making me more determined to keep showing up and doing the thing that I'm doing.
Do me a favor and please let us know when we're not doing the thing that we should be doing as a media platform. And the reason why I say that, Ohm and I exchanged a text message, a thread of text messages this morning, where I said to him, I said, are we doing enough? Like, I don't know if we're doing enough. I don't feel like we're doing enough. Like, I'm always looking for more. We want more voices on our platform. We want more people of color, more people of various gender identities, more people in larger, like, we just want more. And the reason we want more is because we want people to understand, like, you all belong here, right? It's not just the person that can run a 2.5 hour marathon. It's the person that might take 6.5 hours. It's the person that is going to be, racing against cutoffs, because these sports belong to everybody. And I want to make sure that we're doing it. And so I would ask you this: what can we specifically be doing, and what else can other platforms be doing to make sure we're bringing people to the table so that we can all have fun together?
I love that you've asked this question. I love that you've even considered it. And that is why I spend so much of my time shouting your names from the rooftops. So thank you, first of all. Second, representation just means making us visible. And there's an ad in in the online version of your magazine that has a bunch of people on a trail, and it's a cartoon ad. And one of the things I saw was that there's people of several different colors in that ad, people of several different heights, and some people are running, some people are walking, and some people are riding bikes, and it's all there. But what I didn't necessarily see was somebody in a larger body, somebody in a body that was like mine. And that, because I'm at this point trained to notice those kinds of things, it was one of those things that I was like, I should probably talk to Jason about this. And maybe it doesn't have to look like me, but just having that representation there, having an ad that involves somebody like Myrna or like myself, allows people to see that we are welcome here, and that this is a place where we're not going to get left behind if we join a group run. And it's where you are actively putting out there that you want to meet our needs and you want to take us into consideration. And that is so thoughtful, and we appreciate
it. I love that so much. And I love the feedback on that. And I know exactly which picture you're talking about, and I'm sure Jason does too. And yeah, it's amazing. Like, I just appreciate the back and forth. That it's one of the things that I know Jason envisioned and that I have seen grown with our community, is being able to have, like, not just one-way feedback of commenting with intentionality, but coming back the other way from people like you and people like who I talked to recently, the Queer Cycle crew in the UK. And just, we're always asking them, like, always asking people in our community, like, what can we do better to make truly endurance sports feel less intimidating for the group that you represent. And it just, I just love this feedback so much. And it just makes me smile ear to ear when people feel open to give us that kind of feedback as well.
Like we wouldn't be,
go ahead.
I was going to say, we wouldn't be holding to our values and our vision and mission if we weren't open to constructive criticism and feedback on how we get better. One of my biggest pet peeves about our sports is the gatekeeping.
Yeah.
You're too big. You're too slow.
Yeah.
You pronounce hoka incorrectly. You call it on-call running. And it's like, let me tell you something. The shoe manufacturers don't give a shit what you call them as long as you're buying the shoes. Like, they don't care. But the moment you tell somebody you pronounce this incorrectly, or you're too slow, or you're too big, or you're too whatever, you've now excluded them from the conversation, and they don't want to participate. And that, to me, is what pisses me off more than anything else about gatekeeping. And I wrote an article about this. It pisses me off. Like, just stop doing it.
Right. Yeah, I could go off for literally hours about the gatekeeping, mainly because some of it has been directed directly at me. But I see it so much in the running community. There's so many people who are like, well, you're not a real runner if you run walk. You're not a real runner if you don't finish a marathon in less than 3 hours. You're not a real runner if you this, if you're that. And it's just like, my God, this is something that humans are literally born and have evolved to do. Like, we are evolved to be runners. We are the greatest endurance athlete on the planet. Let us do it. No matter what we look like, let us fucking run, for God's sake. Doesn't matter what we look like. It doesn't matter how big we are. It doesn't matter if the ground shakes when we run. Let us fucking do it.
You know, the thing about the gatekeeping that I try to explain to people is, we always talk about, running is getting expensive. Running is getting more expensive. But I try to tell them this. Imagine if you're a race director and you want to sell 10 entries. And in those 10 entries, you're going to make $1,000 because each entry is $100. Well, you tell 3 people that you're too big, you're too slow, and you pronounce hoka incorrectly. Right? So now you've only got a population of 7, which now means you got to charge $140-ish to get to the $1,000, right? Like, if you keep telling people to go away, running is going to get more and more expensive. So just cut the shit, right? Like, when I go to eat at a dinner table, I want Ohm there. I want Marci there. I see Nancy's on this conversation. I want Nancy there. I see Ruth is in the conversation. I want Ruth there. Why? Because your experiences are going to be awesome to hear about. And I'm going to laugh my ass off when you tell me the story about how the one time you had to go to the bathroom while you were in the middle of your 3-mile run and you didn't know where to go, right? Like we've all been there. Let's have fun and tell stories.
And you know what gets me about this? I had this exact conversation with a plus size athlete that I interviewed last week. Who has an incredible story. And she was like, it's frustrating that, like, there's gatekeeping in that sense, because, like, even though we're finishing in 6 hours, I mean, in spite of, like, the challenge of finishing in 6 hours, like, we're also training. We're also dedicating time to this. We're also balancing our work and our life. Like, what makes your training different from my training? We are also sacrificing to be at the start line. So I don't understand it at all.
Yeah, no. And that's the thing, is that I don't think people realize that my marathon, and I am still shooting for another marathon and eventually a 50K. I will get there once I get through all this bullshit with my perimenopause stuff that I've got going on. And that's another whole podcast. But what I did over an entire year was I dedicated my entire fucking life to that training. Like, my husband by the end of it was like, I don't ever want you to do this again, because I don't want you to be out and gone for literally 10 to 15 hours in a week, and it was ridiculous how much time it became a second job. And the fact that I finished that marathon in 6 hours and 18 minutes doesn't mean shit. If somebody tells me that it, I was still under the cutoff. I made it under the cutoff. I finished that marathon, but somebody tells me that I ran it in 6 hours. And so I'm not actually a runner and I'm not actually a marathon finisher. It's bullshit. I trained for an entire year consistently for that marathon. I fell and got injured during that time, rehabbed that ankle, got back to training, and still made it to that finish line. I did the exact same thing that anybody else who is training for that marathon is going to do. Yes, it took me longer. That means that I have a little bit of, grit, for God's sake. I was out there for 8 hours and 18 minutes. For somebody else, that might be an ultra. For me, that happened to be a marathon. That's great. But I don't tell somebody that their effort is worthless just because it doesn't fit into your narrow box.
What's the joy in stealing somebody else's joy? Like, I don't get it. What are you getting out of it in telling somebody that they're not qualified or whatever? I did an interview with Razik Rauf, who you've talked to at Running Sucks 101. And in the conversation, he said to me, nobody's going to ever tell Usain Bolt that he's not a runner because he only runs 100 meters, right? Like,
thank you.
And I use that quote all the time because it's so true. Like, telling somebody that they're not a runner based on some notion of your own, right? That's not a world-held belief. There's no laws. There's no rules that say, well, if it took you 6 hours and 15 minutes, it doesn't count. Like, I don't understand the joy in stealing somebody else's joy. I mean, we can rant about this for a very long time.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
That's true. Like, it's just become, the gatekeeping culture has become so predominant that it's changing the way people use their words. Like, Jason and I had conversations when we went to the running event, and I recall talking to a gentleman who was like, my friend is training for Boston. I'm not really a runner. I only run like 5K or something like that. And Jason was like, you said one thing wrong in that conversation, and it's that you're not a runner. It's amazing the way, like, I've heard it so many times, like, I just do this, I just do that, I just do that, especially when you start comparing yourself to someone else. And I think that so much of that is predominantly the programming that's been created from gatekeeping culture.
Yeah. 100%. I just had somebody in my fitness group, because I run 2 Facebook groups. One is specifically running, one is general fitness. And the fitness group, people who post in there post about all different types of movement. And this one member posted that she was able to walk from her work to her car, was able to go to the mailbox and back. And because she's been dealing with some injuries and some, I think it was autoimmune conditions, that was a win for her. And it was just one of those moments where she said something along the lines of, this isn't much for other people, but it's big for me. And I'm like, what does that matter for other people? Don't ever qualify your successes. If it's a success for you, it's a success. Shout it from the rooftops, be proud of that, and know that this is a step and you can keep moving. And I always say that all the time to everybody. Focus on yourself, focus on your own goals, focus on your own progress, and don't compare it to anybody else's. Don't worry about the gatekeeping, because those people are more worried about themselves. They're doing it to make themselves feel better about something, whatever. And for you, you need to focus on your own progress and moving forward from there.
And I think part of the issue that we see today is social media, where everything is unicorns and rainbows, and everything is like, you're supposed to do the 5K, 10K, half marathon, like, and progress all the way up and someday run 200 miles. And the reality is, no, like, do the thing that makes you happy. I was just on a podcast interview, and we were talking about 5Ks and 100 milers. And I was adamant, and I am still adamant, I hate 5Ks. Like, I don't want to run one. I won't register for one. I have zero interest in them. Like, the idea of going from 0 to 60 from the first step until 3.1 miles are done scares the living bejesus out of me. I don't want to deal with that pain. So guess what? I don't do it, right?
Yeah.
But I'm going to go run 100 miles because I'm a candle, not a match. I enjoy the dull pain. I enjoy the buffet every 6 to 7 miles. Like, I'm cool, man. But, like, that's what makes me happy. And I think that we need to understand that as individuals, that once we remove the word just and qualifying our distances, then all of a sudden seeing what other people are doing doesn't matter. We're just going to go celebrate you for doing the thing that you're doing.
Yeah. I have a friend who she signed up for a marathon, and she'd always said that the marathon wasn't for her. She was never going to run a marathon, but she had run a lot of half marathons, and she started training for this full, and suddenly realized, and she told me this later, she was like, this became work. I run for fun. I run because I enjoy it. I don't want to have to work when I run. I run because it's fun. And I was like, and she ended up going down to the half marathon for that event and just ran the half marathon and has been happy just running halves ever since. And I'm like, thank you. You need to do what is best for you. You need to do what feels good for you. Most of us aren't running for prize money. Most of us are just recreational runners who are doing this because it feels good or makes us feel stronger or feel healthier. And she made the right choice for herself, what felt good for her. And I applaud her for that. And I've used this story multiple times since she told it to me.
And it's so important too. Like, I think people need to recognize that it's okay to do the thing that makes you happy. Like, it's like you mentioned earlier, being a people pleaser. And I was pointing to myself because I fall into that category as well. I suffer from imposter syndrome on a very regular basis. If it doesn't hit me, 5 times in a day, then I'm not accomplishing my goal of being an imposter syndrome, right, person. Like, it's like, holy shit! Did you run enough? Did you cook enough food? Did you everything is like, did you do it? Like, and I'm constantly struggling with that, and it impacts my mental health constantly because of it. And I think if we can start to bring more people to the table and start to share stories about what it's like to run a 5K, what it's like to run a half marathon, what it's like to run a marathon, we'll realize that they're all similar. Like, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of energy, it's a lot of elation when you cross the finish line, regardless of how long it took. You start to forget about all that other shit. Like, everything else starts to fade away because you're just literally focused on the person in front of you. I do have a question though. One of the things, we're talking a lot about philosophy and ideas and concepts right now. You have a newsletter that comes out, and it's your Monday Mindset newsletter. Tell us a little bit about what goes into that newsletter so that when people subscribe to it, they know what's coming on a regular basis.
So my newsletter is really just it's my blog. It's my way to get my thoughts about running out. It's my way to get my my philosophy on running out. It's my way to get specifics about how to run out there. I spend a lot of time giving how-tos, but also telling my own experience. And in there is also links to my discounts and things, my partnerships with various different brands. And it's a really simple, just little intro to my blog entries. And when you go to my website, you can see all of the fun things that I'm involved in. And also links to my 2 Facebook groups, which are where I organize most of my group events and challenges and things that we do throughout the month.
How do you make the decision on who to work with when it comes to brands? Because Ohm and I are very specific about who we're willing to work with. If they don't have some sort of sustainability component, if they don't have some sort of give back to the community component, it's really hard for us to work with them. Yes, we're in business to make money, but we want to make money in a way that we can look at ourselves and feel proud of what we're doing. And so how do you figure out, do you have sort of a set of guidelines that you work through and when it comes to working with brands?
I have not worked with many brands, mainly because I don't really put myself out there in terms of working with brands. I think I failed as an influencer when it comes to that. But what I do make sure of is it has to be a company that I actively use. It has to be something that I use and recommend and find valuable. But it also, in my case, the discounts that I offer are for plus-sized clothing companies. And those are the ones who actively work to include larger sizes or a range of good, inclusive range of sizes within their within what they offer. The sustainability is always nice. But like I said, I don't work with too many brands. The two main brands that I do work with or that I offer discounts through are Hey Peach, which is a not necessarily sustainable brand, but she is a crowdsourced brand who actually works through her Facebook group to offer things that the group is actually looking for. And she has a lot of different suppliers that offer clothing in larger sizes, anywhere from 4 to 8X. And I love working with her because of she is also a person in a larger body and understands what we're going through. And then I also work with Kinza Active, and having met the owner, Kendra, she is fabulous at making sure that her company is meeting the needs of the plus size outdoors woman, outdoors person. And she has really just been focused on making her small business into something that can make a difference. And I really appreciate that with her. So it really is just making sure that they are offering things that matter to the people who I represent.
Yeah, I truly believe that with the companies that you choose to work with, if you find a company that, it goes back to the golden circle and Simon Sinek principles of, like, if you find a company that shares that vision with you and it's somebody you truly want to work with, and the product that you put out together ends up being like a love letter to your community.
Yes.
And so it's just really cool to hear the thought process of what you consider before working with a brand, and cool to hear that there's brands out there that are supporting plus size women in that way. Of course, shout out to our partners who you've obviously talked to, Elisa Auto and Automatic Threads.
Yes.
And of course, shout out to Adina O'Neill, our community leader, who is watching our chat right now as well.
Hi, Adina.
You mentioned Hey Peach, and you've got your Rear View Running Club shirt on, which has a peach as a logo. Tell us about that as a perfect segue.
Okay, so this is actually just a sticker. I don't have shirts yet, but I
This
will
looks
get
great.
there eventually.
Awesome job.
I picked the color just because it matched the sticker.
I would have never guessed.
So yes, I run my running club is Rear View Runners. We use the peach as our logo because rear, obviously. And our slogans are "Party in the back" and "The view is better in the back." And thank you. And my goal is to make sure that the slow runner, the back of the pack runner, the larger bodied runner feels like they belong in our group. And that's what I work towards. So that's my Facebook group. It used to be just for paying members of my run club. And I do a coaching group, which actually is going on right now. I have my partner, Jamie, she runs the workouts that we do on our group meeting every week. And she graciously decided to take over tonight's meeting for me so that I could be here. And we meet every Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific, and we do a quick 15-minute workout. We talk about our running experiences, and then we do specifics on running. Like tonight, Jamie's going to be discussing speed work and different types of running for, for increasing speed. And so it's really just building my community. It's a whole bunch of different runners who are at different stages of their running journey. I don't focus on a particular training plan. In fact, I do have some runners who are in my group who have never bought a training plan from me, or who have actually used Hal Higdon training plans or whatever it is while they've been working with me, and they just get my input on those plans. I do offer my own training plans, usually through the Final Surge platform. But for the most part, it's just a group of people who are all running and trying to get better at it, trying to just be runners, be in a community together, and feel like we belong somewhere. So that's our philosophy, and that's my group.
And is the club both in person and virtual?
We have a few of us have met in person, but for the most part, we're all over the U.S. Like half of us are on the West Coast and half of us are on the East Coast. So we just meet on Zoom, and they're actually talking. There's a few of them, coincidentally, who live in the Charlottesville, Virginia area, who are talking about doing a meetup soon too. So I'm hoping that this becomes more in person as we get larger.
That's awesome. So my last question before we jump into the rapid fire segment. You were recently in Chicago. Tell me about the experience where you got to meet other large body influencers like Latoya and Martinez. And what was that like for you? And what do you think that's going to help do for the future of athletes in larger bodies?
Okay, so I happened to see Martinez post on Facebook that he had an entry for the Chicago 5K, and I was supposed to run Chicago as my second marathon the year that COVID hit, and the year after that I had gotten injured, and so I wasn't able to do it. And this was it was kismet, I guess. But I saw Martinez's post and he was like, tell me your story, see if you can win an entry. I told my story. He picked me. And I told my husband, like 2 days before we needed to leave, hey, honey, can we go to Chicago this weekend? And, excuse me. That ended up being the most amazing whirlwind weekend of my entire life. I met two of my idols, Latoya and Martinez. I got to run the Chicago 5K with two of my idols. And just being able to have that connection with them and to be able to tell them to their face how much they meant to me and my own journey and how much they inspired me on what I do. I mean, Latoya she is so brilliant, and I don't think people give her enough credit for how brilliant she is in the way that she expresses herself and the way that she manages herself and her business and her platform. And Martinez, he is an author, he is a scholar, these two people are just commendable in so many different ways, and they have basically convinced me that I'm never going to be as good as they are. But but they also they also, just being in their presence and being able to run with them and being able to agree with them and have conversations with them about my experience and their experiences and know that what I'm doing is mattering to people. That was why that weekend was so amazing for me. It was everything.
That's so freaking cool. Like, you could tell how important it was to you. And I'm sure they felt the same after meeting you, how important it was to them to have somebody who's continuing the work to make sure that athletes in larger bodies know that they belong at the starting line as well, for sure. Outside of here on Instagram and Threads, and you have Facebook pages, what is your website URL so people can find you and subscribe to your newsletter as well?
Yep, it's thefatathlete.blog.
Super simple.
Yep.
So are you ready for we call them rapid fire questions, but man, if we get into the conversation about a particular food topic, we're just going to keep rolling with it. So are you ready?
All right. I'm ready.
Awesome. First question: pineapple on pizza, yay or nay? Yes!
Oh,
no. Pineapple does not belong on pizza. No.
Yes.
Are you originally from the East Coast?
No.
Oh, come
Colorado,
on.
Right?
Well, no, I was actually, okay. To be fair, I was born in Delaware, but that was because my dad was stationed there and we only lived there for 6 months before we moved to Illinois. So we were military. I don't really have a home base other than Washington.
6 months in Delaware is all you need to know that you don't put pineapple on pizza. Period. End of story.
Come on.
Pineapple in general is just not a thing. I mean, I'm one of the ones that gets like sores in my mouth if I eat pineapple, so it's not a thing.
Okay, that I can live with. The fact that it's pineapple across the board and not just pineapple on pizza.
I don't care the reason. Period. End of story. It doesn't belong there.
Yep.
Are you a fan of Oreos?
Only the double stuff or the mega stuff.
Mega stuff. Now we're getting way too far away.
You mean there's a stuffing beyond double stuff?
There is a stuffing beyond double stuff. It only comes out like once a year or something like that, and I don't buy Oreos other than when it comes out. So.
Oh, I need to get to the promised land.
They were perfect the way they were. Like, we didn't need to add all of these different pieces and parts to it. Just give me the normal
I mean,
ones.
I'm gonna agree with that in that I don't think Oreo needs a whole bunch of different flavors like they have, like Pop Rocks in Oreos. Really? No, we don't need to go there.
Have you heard of the Swedish fish Oreos? I didn't know that was a thing until I saw Jason put it up on Threads.
Oreo, come on now.
We can thank Howard Moskowitz. So I teach marketing at the collegiate level, and Howard Moskowitz talks about horizontal segmentation, where you don't make the perfect Oreo, you make the perfect Oreos, because so many people like so many different things. But man, it's gone too far. Just stop.
Yeah.
Licorice. Are you a fan of licorice? And if so, red or black?
I have a feeling this is not going to be popular, but I am a black licorice fan.
Nice. Like, I don't like it for me, but I'm happy you enjoy it.
So my mom always loved chocolate licorice growing up. We could never really find it anywhere, so we'd buy it for her when we could find it for like special occasions. And I have enjoyed chocolate licorice every once in a while. I will not buy licorice just in general, but if I don't have any other option for a sweet snack and I have black licorice or red licorice, I would actually choose black. And I eat the black jelly beans.
Oh, so you're a fan of anise and sambuca then, obviously.
Oh yeah.
Peeps. Are Peeps a real candy, or are they just dust covered in glitter?
I mean, I'm a fan of anything with glitter, so obviously I'm a fan of Peeps. I mean, you said unicorns and rainbows earlier, and I was like, you're talking about me, but yes, Peeps definitely count as candy, and they count even more as candy because they are covered in glitter.
Now, are you like straight out of the box, I'll eat the Peep, or do you allow them to get stale because you think they'll taste better that way? Because we've been told you got to let them get stale.
I do prefer them stale.
Adina.
It's such a strange thing, right? Like, I want to eat this thing that's been sitting around for a couple of days because it's going to taste better.
Yep. No. It's something about the chewiness. It's not that it tastes better. It's just it's got that texture that's better. It's like, I don't know. There's some stale Cheez-Its. Stale Cheez-Its are good too.
I've never heard that. What?
We learn something new every time we do this.
So what do? You just put it on a plate and leave it on the counter for a few days?
I mean, look, my daughter left this bag on my desk the other day, and I'm probably going to have some tomorrow. It's just sitting out, it's drying out, and they get even better that way.
This is fantastic. I've got a new question to ask. Candy corn. Is candy corn a real candy, or is it just earwax covered in sugar?
I don't know about earwax, but it's definitely wax covered. It's like wax. No. I think we had this conversation. Candy corn is wax melted with sugar and then formed into the shape. It is not actual candy. And if you're going to eat something like candy corn, you're going to eat the pumpkins. The pumpkins are worthwhile, but you can only have like 3 of them before they feel like gross and gooey.
Oh my goodness. Every grandmother across the country right now is yelling at us. What are you doing? That's all the candy in my dish for my grandkids.
Oh, there's a question. Werther's. Do you eat Werther's? What is it? Werther's toffees.
Butterscotch, right?
The butterscotch. Yep.
Love them. Werther's butterscotch are the jam. Best. Do you like when grandma has the peppermint rounds? You know what I'm talking about? The little peppermint swirls. Do you like those?
Well, I will steal one of those if they're sitting in a basket when I leave the Mexican restaurant. But I'm not a huge fan of just eating those randomly.
For everybody watching, the best peppermint you can possibly buy are King Leo peppermint sticks. They're like a soft peppermint, so they like dissolve in your mouth. They're the best, hands down.
The ones you dip into your hot cocoa and stir it with, and they melt. Yes, those are the best.
Peanut butter or nut butter if you have allergies. Crunchy or creamy?
Creamy, 100%.
Nice. When you're making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, are you putting peanut butter on one side and jelly on the other and then smashing them together, or both on the same slice and then just topping?
No, you put peanut butter on one side and jelly on the other. And if you have to put them together, then you put them together at the same time.
When you cut your sandwich, are you cutting it into 2 triangles, 2 rectangles, 4 squares, or 4 triangles?
When I did cut my sandwiches, I would just cut the crust off and eat the whole thing. No crust. Crust can go away.
We were once told by Shannon, we had her on our Fiery Embers. She goes by B Short Run Ultras. She cuts her sandwiches in half to make 2 rectangles, but then eats them like corn on the cob because she doesn't want to eat the crust, but she holds it like a handle, right?
Yep. That's amazing.
I was like, that's amazing. Is red velvet an actual flavor, or is it just chocolate cake getting dressed up to go to a night at the Grammys?
I mean, considering it definitely makes its appearance later on in the evening, I don't think that it really counts as a flavor. I think it's just chocolate with a shit ton of red dye.
That's exactly what it is. People will argue with me. They're like, oh, but you got to have the buttercream frosting. I'm like, carrot cake has buttercream frosting. Eat that. It's better.
There you go. Well, carrot cake is amazing. My mom makes the best carrot cake anywhere.
Oh, I'm coming to town. Does mom live nearby?
No, she's in Arizona, so you'd have to go back to where you used to live.
I got to go back to Arizona then. I love carrot cake. It's my favorite. Does your mom put pineapple in the carrot cake, or because of the sensitivity?
Why do we circle back to pineapple?
I would be disowning my mother, so no.
What about raisins? Does she put raisins?
Oh my God, what is wrong with people? Like, raisins are the devil. I cannot stand raisins. Like,
really?
The worst thing that ever happened to cookies is raisins, okay?
No! I love oatmeal raisin cookies. My favorite cookie on the planet.
No,
I love oatmeal raisins.
Oatmeal cookies. You do not put raisins in oatmeal cookies.
This is why this is my favorite segment. Like, I just love people's food takes, man. It's so awesome. Oh, Mike Morawski, who's in Portland, who's one of our neighbors, just said Buddha raisins. Who are you people? Come on, raisins.
Like, grapes are grapes are okay, but if you eat a grape and you've got that, like, you know how it has kind of a almost powdery taste to it? Like, it makes your mouth feel like powdery.
You're not supposed to allow grapes to go stale like your goldfish, you know?
Cheese it, Jason. Cheese it.
You gotta eat those things while they're fresh.
Joe says raisins are nature's candy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We go to Marci's house and she's got like the grapes laid out and the peach laid out and the goldfish laid out. It's like things that go stale.
I'm a little hungry. Can I reach into the Cheez-Its? Oh, what is this?
I'm making my next charcuterie board with grapes and Cheez-Its and pineapple. I'm going to put pineapple on there, mix it in with the grapes and the Cheez-Its.
You better eat it fast. I can't. Otherwise, I might as well just go pick up a handful of sawdust. What's your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Ooh, I have to get specific on this one. So it's either Tillamook Mudslide or it is Ben and Jerry's Peanut Butter Half Baked.
Ooh, I like it. I'm gonna have to look both of those up.
I can't remember who it was, but you're actually the second person to mention the mudslide flavor, which is surprising. Yeah. That seems like a very specific flavor.
Well, and Tillamook is popular around here because they're made down in Oregon. So, you know, right. Jason can easily find Tillamook somewhere. So,
absolutely. What about candy bar? What's your favorite candy bar, and why is it the 100-gram bar?
It's not. But okay, so I tend to like things that are very soft, and so my favorite candy bar is the Milky Way because it has caramel and it has the nougat, and it's just very soft. It doesn't hurt my teeth if I bite into a peanut or whatever. So that one is my favorite.
What about Three Musketeers? It's got to be right up there then too, right?
Yeah, Three Musketeers is up there too. I do like a little bit of the caramel added into the nougat though.
All right. So our last set of questions before we say goodbye and go back to our lives that aren't as fun as having this conversation. When you when you make brownies or when you eat brownies, are you the kind of person that wants the edge with a little bit of the crust there, or are you more in the middle and give me the ooey gooey component?
Okay, so it totally depends on the type of mix that you use to make the brownies. If you've made homemade brownies, then it depends on your recipe. So the best brownies are the Ghirardelli, if I'm saying that correctly, the Ghirardelli mix that is like a 3 chocolate with chocolate chips in them. You can get it at Costco. It is the best brownie mix. And if you make it with that mix, it doesn't matter whether you get it on the edges or in the center. It's always going to be gooey and still have a little bit of chew. I'm a connoisseur here, apparently. I was not aware of this. But if you if you make it with any other brownie mix, it's going to be an edge piece.
Nuts or no nuts on the brownie?
No nuts.
No nuts. And
No nuts.
if you're going to make it in a la mode, what's the ice cream that you're topping it with?
Oh, just vanilla.
Flavor. Oh,
Just
you got to
vanilla.
try. Do you like coffee?
I mean, I'll drink coffee.
Yeah, you put coffee ice cream on top of the brownie and it becomes like a mocha. It's so good.
Okay.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Okay. I'm going to take your word for that. I may have to try that.
and not for nothing. Here's a secret. Like crunch up the brownie, chop it up, put it in the bottom of a mug, and then you put the coffee ice cream on top. So as you're scooping it out, it kind of becomes like an affogato as you're going through.
Okay. I'm picking up what you're putting down. I like this.
I clearly spend a lot of time thinking about food, so trust me on this. Like, trust me on it.
I mean, when you run 200 milers, you kind of have to spend a lot of time thinking about food.
I'm gonna walk. I'll walk to the first floor of this apartment building after taking the elevator. And I'll come back up and be like, "Man, I need a recovery move." I love food. Like the thing about food for me is the ability to have communication and company with people. I think it's just so awesome that when you're around a table and you're chatting and you're enjoying food, like that just feels like the best thing you can possibly do. Like I've always said, my front door is always open. Come in, I'll cook for you. We'll eat together. We'll share stories. We'll laugh our asses off and just have a good time. For me, that's what food is. And my parents did it. And it's just something that has rolled down to me.
I fully 100% support that. My family, my husband and my kids, we have had family dinners every single night for most of my kids' lives. And my son moved out in August of this past year. And we told him one of the requirements, if he was to move out at 19, was that he had to come back every single Sunday for family dinner. So he has every single Sunday come and had dinner with us. And we always, if most of the time we'll cook, but occasionally we just go out. But it's one of those food and family things, it's important especially for connection.
I love it. Like I don't know if you watch the show, but I'm a big fan of Blue Bloods on CBS because I am like 50 going on 90. So I watch a lot of CBS shows. Clearly, like I'm a huge fan of 60 Minutes. I watch it every weekend. But at the end of Blue Bloods, they have a family dinner, right? And I love the idea of family getting around a table. And honestly, family could be blood, but it could just be a bunch of friends to get around a table and share stories and just have a good laugh with each other.
100%.
Awesome.
I'm a fan of calling Run Try Bike Candy Snack Brownie too as a secondary name. I love it.
Thanks, Mike. That's going to be the name of our new podcast. Candy Snack Brownie.
Candy Snack Brownie.
When we had Rach McBride on a couple of weeks ago, they mentioned that, their friends had been saying to them, we can't wait for the rapid fire at the end to discuss pineapple on pizza and everything else with Rach and Jason and Ohm. And I mentioned that maybe we just need to start like a food podcast with it. Just bring endurance athletes on so they could tell us their food preferences. Like, yes, I do love stale peeps and stale goldfish. But I'm mind blown.
Yep.
I think we're just gonna have to go for it, Jason, just like we did with the Fireside chat. All these throwaway ideas, man.
Well, Marci, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to do everything I can to get down to join you in the Rearview Run Club one weekend, and be a part of the finish line dance party with you guys.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm blown away by what you two do. I'm so thankful to be a part of it. I'm so thankful that you give me this platform to do my writing, and just thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Everybody,
Appreciate
thank
you.
you for joining us. See you next week. And don't forget to join us on Thursday for Trivia Thursday, brought to you by Topo Athletic, and Food Fight Friday, where who knows, maybe we'll be arguing about whether or not goldfish are better stale or fresh out of the pouch.
Oh man.
Have a good night, everybody.